Hey everyone, it's Laura and Keith coming back at you live after an exciting couple of Stanley Cup final games. We have back-to-backs. Last night, Tampa Bay put Dallas onto the verge of elimination with a big 5-4 overtime win. And then tonight, in double overtime, Dallas stays alive. Corey Perry scores 2 goals, and we're having a game 6 on Monday night.
Vintage Corey Perry, you might say.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing the little late night podcast tonight after the overtime game. I'm already in my PJs. I feel like I should, be in my house coat with a pipe Hugh Hefner podcast.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, no, maybe not. It was a good game. The last 2 games were really just good hockey games. They're good back and forth, and I think despite all the injuries and everyone being so tired with so much hockey in the last 69 days or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
They were trying really hard. You could tell they were putting it all on the line. And then, 2 overtime games back to back. It makes sense. They want it. They all want it. And vintage Scorey Perry, like you said.
Perry, yeah.
Good for him.
It is interesting, because I was kind of adamant before the game that I thought it was stupid on the part of the NHL to put 2 Stanley Cup final games back to back, and I thought, in terms of a product, that this game would be kind of meh. But actually, after Tampa tied it, I thought the pace was pretty good. I didn't think they looked overly tired. I mean, obviously that second overtime, they were very tired, and the overtime in general, I think you could see the fatigue, but the pace kept up pretty well.
No, it was good. It wasn't slow and sloppy or anything like that yet. And one thing I did write down I want to talk about was Braden Point was pretty banged up at the end of the Islanders series there, and it seems like he has gotten past whatever was ailing him, because he has turned it back on and thrust himself right back into the Conn Smythe conversation with Hedman and whoever else. Yeah, maybe.
Can name a bunch of Tampa Bay players.
Well, either he's over it, or I was going to say maybe he's just hitting up his high doses of the Toradol or whatever it is. I wanted to talk later a little bit about that. What's it called? The
Problem with Pain.
The Problem with Pain, the TSN special, the 30-minute feature with Ryan Kessler, your boy.
Yeah, my boy, RK17.
It was very interesting, but yeah, we'll come back to that.
For sure.
But I want to also say in these last 2 games, I've noticed no playoffs, but Tampa's passing is just, second to none. There's no reason that they're not in the cup here. It looks like a power play sometimes, just 5-on-5. Some of the offensive plays they're able to pull off, and then the power play has been really effective for them, obviously, too. It looks really good. If they can look that good, they're passing 5-on-5. So it's good work for Dallas,
Yeah, I think it's been kind of a pattern of Stanley Cups here. Something interesting that happens in the NHL that other teams or other leagues don't seem to have is that there usually is kind of a clear-cut favorite in the Stanley Cup final, and then an underdog team. I mean, I can think back to when your Flyers made the final there against Chicago, and it just seemed like that was Chicago's cup to lose. I mean, Washington with Vegas when it was their first time in the playoffs. And kind of the pattern is, you get that really exciting first round, probably a really good second round, and then the third and fourth rounds are kind of meh. And it was interesting this year with the bubble because you thought maybe it wouldn't be like that because they were doing reseeding. So it wasn't the same as you being stuck in your division, so you might not get those rivalries. Right. But I still feel like, Tampa is clearly the better team, right? For the majority of these games, it's been Tampa controlling really since the third period of game 1. Yeah. And then there's been moments when Dallas has looked good, but they can't really keep up to Tampa's play.
And, Dallas is getting a little bit of puck luck, too. They got another one of those goals last game where Klingberg shot it, and it came right back to him. And those quick second shots are pretty tough for goalies to track and respond to immediately, right? So, it's good games, and it could go either way every game.
These past 2 games have definitely been competitive, and they're clearly there. I mean, Game 3 was a blowout for Tampa, but overall, I mean, Game 2 was close too. So you're right, they have been close, but just the feel of the game is very much in the favor of Tampa. So
yeah, you got any predictions for Game 6?
I was going to ask you, do you think there's any chance that we see Stamkos
No.
play? No. Yeah, I agree with that. I think if they win the Cup, I'm very interested to see. I assume he comes out onto the ice. He's all dressed up. Does he take the Cup from Bettman still?
I mean, he's going to have the C, so I assume so.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think Tampa will wrap it up, but I also thought they'd do it tonight. So, selfishly for myself, because I'm going to have to miss the third period of the game on Monday, I really hope that Dallas can push a Game 7, because I think that would be really exciting. We all love those Game 7s and the Stanley Cup Final in particular, but I think that Tampa will refocus here and they'll get it done.
Okay, so you're going to say Dallas in Game 6.
I'll say Tampa wins in Game 6.
You're saying Tampa in Game 6?
Yeah.
Okay, I think they'll wrap it up as well. They were so close tonight.
They were close tonight on a few of those chances there in the overtime.
I think I wanted to say if Tampa wins the Cup, I kind of feel like they're going to make some big moves in terms of the flat cap and, like you were mentioning earlier to me, the Rays come to Vasilevsky.
Yeah.
Steven Stamkos, Alex Core, maybe a Tyler Johnson. You were saying Tyler Johnson's a prime candidate for the Seattle expansion draft, you were thinking?
That's just my gut feeling now.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot can change in a year.
For sure.
But yeah, they're gonna have to make some moves, right? They have RFAs that are gonna need raises, and they have the Vasilevsky contract kicking in, and then if you want to add pieces or change anything up anyway, there's always movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think Tampa they're gonna look a lot different next year. It depends on how much they play around with that core.
Mm-hmm. So I mentioned it with Point, and I want to quickly circle back to the TSN, the Problem of Pain feature, and I want to recommend it to anyone if the 3 people that might be listening to us, that we could, promote this. It's on tsn.ca. It's free to stream. It's half an hour long, and it's just a good kind of like educational thing on how the system's built on so much money that they throw a lot of drugs that mask the problems of pain for the hockey players without really educating the players on
what can happen
to them down the line, the side effects of these drugs. And it talks to a couple different former NHLers, and I don't want to get too much into it or give it away, but Ryan Kessler's in there, and he's talking about how these drugs have completely debilitated him in some ways, to his quality of life is decreased so much. It's an interesting watch, and I want to get your thoughts on it quickly too.
Yeah, so I have 2. One is that I never actually considered that aspect of hockey. Like anyone, I guess, who is a hockey fan, we love that storyline of the player playing through pain.
Oh, the Warrior.
The Warrior coming back and winning. And that was when Kessler was on the Canucks. That was one of the things I loved about him. You always knew he was going to be there and he'd give 100%. But you never thought what it was that was getting him to that.
Oh, exactly. Like when he came back out of the dressing room or something, and the fans go crazy and the bench gets a boost or whatever. But like you said, you don't really think what went on back there.
Yeah. And then Kessler actually tweeted out when this story or this little documentary was broadcast a couple days ago. And he said, I just want to get this information out there for other players so that they know what the risks are. Yeah. Because, again, the team isn't really looking out for the player. The team wants the product, right?
Right.
And then he said at the end, but I would still do this. Like, I would do this for my team, and I don't regret any of the decisions I made, and it was my decision. And that kind of brings me back to the thing that we talk, like, my background's in kinesiology, and something that we talk a lot about in kind of sports psych stuff is if you gave an Olympian a red pill that it doesn't have to be red, just a pill, I guess, that would take off 5 years of their life, but it guaranteed that they would win a gold medal. Those Olympians say that, the majority of them say that they will do it, whereas if you ask any regular kind of non-Olympian, they'll say no. So there is something different in those high-level athletes where they care about winning to the point where they don't really care about their lives. So I think this documentary is great, that it's out there, that people might think about it more, or maybe there's alternatives, which they talk about a bit in the documentary as well. but I don't think it's going to shift that mentality out of hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's just going to, like it does hammer home, help educate people on, like, the value of second opinions.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff like that.
Yeah. But very good. I would highly recommend watching it, too. I thought it was very impactful.
It was worth it.
Yeah.
Nice short watch.
Yeah.
Moving on. Do you have something you want me to hop up there?
You can hop up first, and I'll jump in after.
Sure, okay. I want to quickly talk about the shocking little trade before the game today that you told me about, and I looked into a little bit. Mark Stahl going from the Rangers to Detroit.
Yep.
The Rangers had to pay a second-round pick to send him to Detroit. Saved them nearly $6 million cap space.
Yeah.
For what? It was 1 year, right?
I think one, possibly two, but I think it's one.
I think it was one. Yeah, and what does that say? Like, to me, that says that the Rangers are looking at this young team they got, and they're thinking, hey, we could use a little extra money, and we can turn this around way quicker than we were already planning.
I think they're all in.
Well, Lafreniere is a lock, I think, for them, right? So we can put him with the young contracts they got.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to buy out Lundqvist?
I think they will.
Yeah?
Yeah. And I think he's prepared for it. That's my guess, although it hasn't happened yet, so maybe not. They might still be looking around trying to trade him and retain salary, but they're not gonna risk losing one of those two young goalies.
No, and I mean the Seattle expansion draft is another thing entirely for them, right? But, Lundqvist, I think, will get bought out, and this Stahl trade could be, helping deal with the cap for that a little bit. Allow them to be a little more flexible.
For sure, I hadn't thought about it like that, actually.
The two goalies together will be super cheap without him.
Yeah.
And I've read a lot about how New Jersey's going to throw a bunch of money at him right away, and he would probably want to stay close to New York, so I can kind of see that.
I can see that, yeah. As a backup to Blackwood.
Yeah, or even just splitting the load, because we've talked about how the schedule is going to be super condensed, right?
They're going to want that,
Yeah,
veteran presence. I can see that.
And for Detroit, I don't think it's a bad move. It's a good second-round pick to acquire for just picking up a year of Mark Stahl. They can afford him.
Some leadership.
Yeah, leadership. He's not the worst player in the world yet. He's not what he was.
They also re-signed Sam Gagner today. I don't know if you saw that.
$850K. Yeah, good for him.
Good for him, yeah. I don't think he's a bad player. He just made too much money in Vancouver, which was his problem, right?
Yeah. No, I think he's probably a good for the locker room type guy for Detroit, and they need to turn it around in a big way. So, why not?
Yeah.
I also want to mention with this trade, though, not good for Canucks fans, I would say. If New York's paying a second-round pick to send 1 year of Mark Stahl to Detroit, the people that are thinking we can trade Eriksson
won't get moved out of Vancouver.
Not with anything less than a first rounder, and there's no way they can do it. They can't do it.
No. I mean, it would have to be next year, right? But he won't do it. And
no.
I think if you look at the cap scenario with Eriksson, right, you can't buy him out. No one's going to trade for his contract unless you're willing to give up that really good prospect or a first-round pick. So the only thing you can hope for is that the AHL is a thing next year, and you can send him down. Because if they can send him down, they save a lot off their cap with him, and that will help. Unless you can convince him to make up some sort of injury and retire. That's the only other hope the Canucks have. But I
was going to ask you, do you think maybe the lack of an AHL could benefit them in the sense that they can't send him down? So instead of him never playing, then he might be willing to retire and go play in Europe?
Maybe I hadn't thought about that either.
Right?
But
maybe just for the lack of opportunity, right? If they say, okay, we can't even send you down, but we can't play you either.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe he goes.
It's gonna be an interesting and different offseason, right? It's gonna be weird.
I think it's just gonna be insane. Like after this Cup final wraps up, we're just gonna see crazy things that we're not even predicting right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you?
Okay, so this is the Winnipeg rumor. There's a lot of talk that they're going to trade Patrick Laine.
Right.
There are as many teams in the NHL right now. There's way more that are in cap trouble than not cap trouble. Winnipeg is one of those teams.
He's due for a contract.
He's due for a contract next season. He will probably get a big one because he can score goals, and scoring goals is hard to do.
Despite his inconsistencies.
Although I will say with Laine, this year was definitely his best all-around year.
Right. Kind of like Brock Besser has.
The problem with Laine in Winnipeg is they don't want to play him with Mark Scheifele. And because they don't have a second-line center, a quality second-line center, with Brian Little out, who do you play line A with?
Blake Wheeler.
But Wheeler's playing up with Scheifele.
I know, but he can play center.
He could play center.
To shove, they might have to because, like you say, the cap problems.
Yeah.
Right?
But the idea out of Winnipeg is that you flip him and you maybe get your second-line center and a top 4 demon.
Yeah.
Which is possible. And the team that comes up the most with that is Columbus.
Right? The Finnish connection with the GM.
There's also Montreal. That's the other team that people are talking about.
The one I was thinking about, I hadn't read about yet, I thought would be Buffalo's looking to make big moves.
Yep.
You know, I could see them pushing for him because he could be a fantastic sign
with
for
Eichel. Oh, that would be awesome, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know who
well, they need D, and they've been talking about Ristolainen for years, right? So that could be a starting point.
Yeah. But yeah, he's one of those pieces. He's an he'll be a good top scorer, or at least goal scorer in the league for years.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he's not going to fit in Winnipeg, I don't see it. So. No,
I think I'll even go back to Buffalo again and say that, you know, if he would go there, they can send Ristolainen back and lost my point. Go ahead.
It's okay. But yeah, there's tons. Right now, basically, is like trade rumor season in the NHL. The Canucks one that came up this week, we both talked about, was Virtanen going to Boston, which
That's
obviously,
right,
as a Canucks fan, makes me a little bit nervous because it just starts feeling like Cam Neely. Not like I was alive for Cam Neely, but you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't seriously think he's going to become that level of power forward, but I do think once he gets out of Vancouver, he's going to have at least a couple really good seasons.
I agree. I was going to bring that up. I remember my point.
Okay,
Buffalo and Winnipeg have the history too. They've made that big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Sending Tyler Myers to Buffalo or to
Kane.
Winnipeg for Vander Kane. Yeah, sorry. That's what I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, from returning to Boston, I was talking with a coworker. He actually heard that Brandon Carlo had been rumored to be out of Boston.
That'd be a nice pick.
And that he said that they were talking Virtanen and Carlo. I think they would have to add something.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, probably, hopefully not as far as like a second round pick, but it would probably be a third or a fourth. Brandon Carlo looks like a decent player. I don't know why he would be on his way out of Boston, but maybe to save cap space for a Torrey Krug if they want to re-sign him.
Yeah. It seems like Krug is gone, though.
Seems like Krug is gone. I would take Brandon Carlo.
I would take Brandon Carlo in a heartbeat.
In a deal. Just, if Vancouver wants to revamp
their blue line,
he'd be a good replacement for a Troy Stetcher, who sounds like, unfortunately, will probably not come back.
I don't think so, which, again, I like Stetcher. I think he's got a good game, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to make the money fit with him.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Hutton last year. So,
exactly.
You know, all the best to him if he doesn't resign. We still haven't heard anything, really. Nothing more about Toffoli. It sounded like things were going well, but
a little quiet now.
A little quiet, so maybe not so well, but yeah, we'll see in the next week here.
Yeah. Last episode, we quickly talked about Jim Rutherford and his crazy tactics and how, you know, there was the rumored Hornqvist for Matheson trade that actually eventually did go through.
Yes.
And they had to take Sevier with Matheson.
It's even weirder.
It just seems like no one was ever going to take this Matheson trade, and it seemed like prime for, you know, another player sunk in the A or bought out, and then Pittsburgh comes along and needs a right-handed defenseman and gets left-handed defenseman Matheson in his crazy bad contract. I mean, Hornqvist isn't anything near what he was, but he's got a smaller contract.
And I think Hornqvist will play actually quite well with some of those forwards in Florida.
Well, he brings a little bit more grit than I think a lot of them have.
Yeah, and they are going to lose Hoffman. They're going to lose Dadonov for some reason that I'm not 100% sure why. But I think Hornqvist will play well there. The thing about Pittsburgh that's interesting too is they always want to have those reclamation projects on D, right? They had Justin Schultz, Jack Johnson. You know, sometimes it works out okay, sometimes it really doesn't.
Yeah.
Mike Matheson hasn't been the same since really since he hit Elias Pettersson really 2 years ago. So I don't know. It's a very strange deal, and they end up actually, I think, having to pay more on the cap than the Hornquist.
Because they took Sevier as well.
Because they took Sevier. And Sevier could be an okay fourth-line player for Pittsburgh. I'm not going to say it's bad, but
it's not like
why?
He could peak. Yeah, he's 31.
Yeah.
You know.
It's
you know what you're getting.
A head-scratcher for sure.
If anything more, it might be less.
Yeah.
You know? That was a weird one.
Yes.
And my last one that I had was the rumors of Johnny Gaudreau to Philadelphia. Don't die. I'm not thrilled about the idea. Johnny Hockey seems like soft skill, to coach Jim Benning, and he had a little bit better playoffs this year with Calgary, but he just doesn't seem like a big moment player, and Philadelphia showed again that the Giroux core doesn't seem like they can come through in the big moments either. They kind of dry up in the playoffs a little bit. So,
what's the rumor return for Gaudreau?
I haven't seen anything. Yeah. It would be interesting because they're saying it's contingent on Hall signing in Calgary, so they probably would be looking to take a Van Riemsdyk back or something like that. Maybe it would be a Gostisbehere type package, but I'm not even sure.
Yeah, Calgary wants they're gonna have to do something because that core can't win together for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean Brody's gonna leave on their blue line. They're going to have quite a lot of different faces, but they need to do something. I mean, Taylor Hall to Calgary makes a lot of sense just because he's from Calgary and he's kind of the player that they would need, especially if, they ship out a Gaudreau. But I would still be more, I don't know, maybe more inclined to try to trade a Monahan than a Gaudreau.
Okay.
But that's because I think that Monahan's more of the kind of coat rider on that line. I don't think he generates as much by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. We'll see what Calgary does. My kind of final comment, I think it's my final one. Oh, I have two.
Okay.
So my second final comment here is that the Senators kind of somewhat surprisingly bought out Bobby Ryan, who was making $7 million to basically do nothing. The surprising part about this was that Ottawa really didn't have anyone else that they were paying big money to.
Right.
So it was almost like they needed that contract, and I think it's that they need to spend now $22 million just to get to the cap floor.
Right.
So there's two kind of
interesting. Is that much for re-signings?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think they've locked up kind of their big guys for right now. But the thing that's interesting, right, is like Melnyk, extremely cheap. He's going to now pay someone to not play for them, which is kind of a head scratcher too. And then secondly, it kind of indicates that Ottawa's going to make some moves. Yeah. They're going to, I think they have a lot
of draft capital.
Yeah. So I think they're going to try and spend, some of those second rounders, maybe a third rounder, and add salary.
Right.
And maybe be competitive, try and make the playoffs next year.
Right.
But, they're going to need a lot. They'd have to upgrade their goalies, obviously. There's lots of goalies out there, so anything's possible. But it's an interesting situation in Ottawa because of the ownership, and they do have a ton of nice young prospects that look good. But,
I think they're going to throw big money at a veteran goalie for a year or two here because they do have a couple of goaltenders that are up and coming that are supposed to be good.
Yes.
I think Melnyk is the prickly personality that everyone thinks he is, and there's a reason he has a bad rep. And I remember distinctly at an interview with Bobby Ryan after a game where he got asked about his contract and how it's working out, and he responded kind of smugly and saying, well, it's working out pretty well for me. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
And I feel like Melnyk would be the type of guy that would hold on to that and be like, you know what, that guy's going to go.
Yeah, no, that could make sense. I think someone will probably take a flyer out of Bobby Ryan. I think he'll get a contract. And on like a third or fourth line, he'll be serviceable. He's got probably the most interesting story in hockey. Not with the whole rehab part of it, but the whole
everything from his family thing and changing the name, and that he does have an interesting family history for sure.
For sure, and then being that second pick after Sidney Crosby is also a fun one for him.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, it didn't seem like it was that bad. He did have a pretty good career, and then Ottawa happened,
and he's had like how many times have his hands been broken by blocking shots?
Yeah.
You know, his hands are like butter now.
yeah,
So you know how much stick handling has like that was his game was his stick handling and his in tight skill, and if you don't have full capability with your hands anymore, it's got to be tough to be able to have that
pretty
same
hard
level of
to feel
control,
the
right?
puck.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the hat trick that he scored though against Vancouver in his homecoming to Ottawa was a very nice story for the season. And
Yeah, probably won him the Masterton.
yeah, probably one of the Masterton. It's questionable. Yeah, but
of course it was Vancouver. Vancouver's just kind of that
It
team
has
that,
to
you know,
be
these
Vancouver.
momentum or these big milestones
Yeah.
or a player's first NHL goal.
Totally.
It's very common happening to
Yeah.
Canucks. It just happens to be that way.
Yeah, but thankfully because of COVID, it didn't cost the Canucks their season because that wasn't that iffy time where they weren't playing very well and it looked like they were
Bergson
going
was hurt. Yeah.
to miss the playoffs. So I can be happy for Bobby Ryan now. It was nice.
Yeah.
Now it didn't cost us anything. But yeah, my final point for tonight is just kind of to talk about Arizona because there's been a lot going on with them really for their whole entire existence. But in the past couple months here, with their GM stepping down, leaving, whatever the correct term is for him,
Right.
then they got fined
For things he did.
for things he did. Yeah, exactly. And now they're in this really bad situation where they're paying their players a lot of money. You look at that Clayton Keller contract, it doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
They're rumored to be shipping out their Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Darcy Kemper, and I mean, I assume this is to try and recoup those draft picks.
Yeah.
They traded their draft picks this year for Taylor Hall,
Yeah.
who doesn't look like he's staying, and
No.
Why would he?
It's a mess.
So I just don't even, I'm at the point, it's like, how do they even still have a hockey team?
Yeah, I mean, Gary Bettman has saved them time and time again. He won't let it go because every other Sun Belt team has done well and won a cup besides Florida, basically, right? So, yeah, I agree. They should have moved. They should have moved when Winnipeg needed a team before Atlanta failed, and they probably should have moved to Seattle.
Yeah.
But, hopefully we can keep our fingers crossed. They move to Quebec one of these days.
Awesome.
They've got the arena. I think they can support it.
Yeah. It sounds like they want Kansas City more, though, than Quebec.
Yeah, well,
Which, it's very NHL. But.
Very true. Yeah, well, we'll see. Wherever the money comes from, I guess.
Yeah.
But, Arizona's just kind of a mess, and I was honestly quite surprised the NHL came through so strongly with their discipline on the prospect scouting or whatever. But, kind of impressed, surprised,
Yeah, no, it was good. I heard that there was a lot of other teams that were pissed, and they were like, you need to do something.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of pressure on the NHL to actually take a stance, but I agree, it was way more than I thought they were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just very interesting because, they have new ownership there now, and they evidently want to be competitive. But I don't see there's any way that team is competitive if they trade Darcy Kemper.
Well,
Like, he's been unreal in the past.
what free agent goalies are going to want to go there too?
Yeah, I mean, they do have, right, they have Ranta, who's okay when he's healthy, and then they
when he's
have
healthy. Yeah.
their bottom three guy, Adam Hill, and he's okay. He seems like he can play NHL level. So they have something there if no one wanted to sign,
Mm-hmm.
but I just don't see how they could make any sort of a profit, basically, if they trade Kemper.
Right.
And they did have the playoff success this year, where they
Mm-hmm.
got in, and then they got dealt a big hand blow by Vegas, and it's just meh.
Yeah.
Phil Castle,
Yeah.
who's gonna want Phil?
No, I think, you like to say, it's just time to call it.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I don't know.
That's
I think
all
that's
I got
it.
for tonight.
Yeah.
But this was a good number 3 episode for us, and thanks for listening to Hockey Talk on the Rock.
Yeah.
Email, suggestions, questions.
We'd love to hear from you
hockeytalk
guys or
on the
comment
rock at
below.
Gmail.
Yeah. And we'll be back actually probably
We'll talk after the Stanley Cup's handed out.
after the Stanley Cup's handed out.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
We'll talk about that and whatever else might have happened between now and then.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
All
Thanks
right.
for watching, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.